back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Kyla, and in this video we're going to be talking about the bad, the ugly, and the disappointing of 2023. Yes, in this video I'm going to be sharing with you the worst books of 2023. Now obviously we have to keep in mind this is just my opinion, so if you see some of your faves on here, no, you didn't. And I actually didn't have that many disappointing, well actually that's a lie. I had a lot more disappointing reads this year than I did like worst books. There's only one standout like worst book to me. Other than that, they were just mostly ones that I was really disappointed by, because this year was also the year of the DNF for me. And like, we love that for us, you know? I highly encourage everyone to adopt the DNF mentality. It just saves you so much time and a lot of sanity and just happiness for your reading experience overall. So there were only a handful of books that I actually finished that I did not like. Like, it just, I mean, seriously, I cannot recommend a DNF enough. Really can't. I just am such a fan now. I used to feel so guilty about it, but you know what? There are so many books in the world, so little time, and like, if you're not enjoying something, really, why are you going to continue? You're going to push through just to give it a low rating? Like, what's the fun in that? What is the fun in that? So, I'm going to break this video down into DNFs. I'm just going to share with you the books that I DNF'd this year. Get those out of the way. I'm not going to spend time on them. I'm just going to let you know what they were, and then we will go to my most disappointing reads, which is the majority of this video, and then I will let you know what my worst book of the year is, because there is one contender, y'all. One clear standout. I just, no. Absolutely not. So I will share that with you as well. So, oh man, should we just get started? I think we should. And before I share this list, I just want to say that most of the time I give a book a good 100 pages before I DNF. The majority of these that's what happened. So I read at least mostly, give or take that the book's like, 300 pages long, a third of the book before giving up. This isn't like an instant DNF or whatever. Some of them I made it even further than that, some I didn't, but anyways, I just want to say that like, I'm not DNFing in like the first 20 pages, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just want to let you know, I do try to give them a fair chance. I just like, sometimes it's just not worth it. Anyway, so we have Wonderland by Jennifer Hillier, The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. I made it to one scene in that and I was like, absolutely not. Things We Do to Our Friends by Heather Darwin. This one I made like 75% of the way in. And I was like, why am I doing this? Just Like Mother. The Soulmate by Sally Hepworth. What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, which like, ouch, I love T. Kingfisher. But no, this one was not for me. It's a novella though, so at least there's that. The Villa by Rachel Hawkins. Me and Rachel Hawkins were breaking up. Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia for Fairies. Maybe I'll come back to this one at some point. I'm not sure. The St. Ambrose School for Girls by Jessica Ward. Nothing happened. Nothing happened, and I gave this more than 100 pages. Why? Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I know, I'm gonna ruffle feathers, but like, no, absolutely not. No, I don't subscribe. Don't subscribe. A Twisted Love Story by Samantha Downing. I'm not here for domestic thrillers. I'm like giving up on them completely. Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. We'll get to that. Coffee Shop of Curiosities by Heather Weber. This is just so similar to her other books that I've just felt like I was reading the same thing. This one is gonna hurt some of y'all, but I'm sorry. Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. We'll get to that. The September House. We Ride Upon Sticks. I don't care about field hockey enough. The Cloisters. Boring. And then my last one, my last DNF of the year. This happened in November, and like, I tried, y'all, I really did, and like, I'm disappointed in myself, but it was Babel by R.F. Kuang. I know this is so many people's favorite books, but like, footnotes, they're not for me, and also, I felt really stupid reading this book. I felt really not smart. So, there's that. So that is my list of DNFs. Now let's move on to my most disappointing books of the year. So we are going to talk about the elephant in the room first, and that is the Leigh Bardugo elephant in the room. I have not liked a single book from her. So this was kind of like my most disappointing arc of the year, because I gave all of her books a shot, at least the most popular ones. Ninth House, I gave 3 stars to. Like, it was okay, definitely more enjoyable than the rest, but like, I just did not enjoy this. There is something about Leigh Bardugo's writing that just does not do it for me. I don't like her atmosphere that much. Like, I'm not really invested. Her characters never sync with me. I don't know what it is, but there's just some sort of block there that it's driving, and I gave her a shot. Okay, Ninth House, Shadow and Bone, Six of Crows. I even read some of Hellbent, which is the sequel to Ninth House, and all 4 of them, I was like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my life? And she is just not an author for me. I apologize, okay? I know so many of you are Six of Crow fans. That was the last one that I tried, and I feel like at that point I was kind of just over it. So will I revisit maybe Six of Crows in the future? That is a possibility. But for right now, I think me and Leigh Bardugo are done. I'm done with the Grishaverse. I just can't. So that was really like a major disappointment for me, because I was so looking forward to reading all of the Grishaverse. I was like so hyped on it. And again, I really, I thought I was going to love Ninth House. Like, I'm a dark academia girly. You say dark academia fantasy? Yes. Plus it took place at Yale. Oh my goodness. I was like, this is fed for me. Like, I need this, and it just was such a disappointment, and it made me so sad. And that was really like the spiral. I was like, okay, maybe Ninth House just isn't for me, but maybe the Grishaverse is like gonna be my wheelhouse and where I stand. But unfortunately, that did not happen. I found Shadow and Bone so boring. So it's just something disconnecting there about me and Leigh. And like, you know what? That's okay. We don't have to jive with every author, and I think me and Leigh are done. I also should say these are in no particular order. This is not like a countdown to the worst. These are just my most disappointing, and they're kind of all, around the same level or so, except for my worst book of the year, which we will get to at the end. So my next disappointing read was Catherine House, which, like, this one I think I just had the highest of expectations for, because I like weird books. Like, if there's any sort of weird horror, like, that's where I jive with. Like, I loved Mother Thing. I feel like this kind of falls along the lines of like Bunny and Heathers, and like that kind of weird is my thing. So I think I just went into it with too high of expectations, and this one just fell flat for me. I really like how ambiguous this book is. Like, some things are really just up for interpretation, and also things are kind of left like a little bit open-ended. Usually I really like that in books. I know like Ian Reid does that a lot, and I love Ian Reid. So I think I just had too high of expectations for this one, and it just fell a little flat for me. I didn't really feel invested in the story, and then as it started going on, and it takes kind of a weird like sci-fi-ish twist, and that's not really like my jam. I can understand why people do love it, but it's not really my jam. So it was just disappointing for me, and I just am so sad about it, because I know this one is like, it's such a good conversation book. Don't get me wrong though, the writing in this book is incredible. So that I can give props to, but overall I was just really disappointed, because I was expecting a weird read like Bunny, and like where we did get that in some aspects, it just did not work for me in so many other aspects. And then we have Middle Game by Shauna Maguire, and this one also bit of a disappointment, but more so because of the ending. I want to say like the first half of this book, and then it just fell apart for me. I was so invested in these characters in the beginning. You cannot help love Roger and Dodger. Like, you cannot, especially their relationship and how their relationship blossoms. Like, it's gorgeous writing, and you really just, you have to know what is going to happen with these two and how their lives are going to intersect. Like, you just can't help but like really fully engross yourself in this book. And that's how I felt for the first half. And then it just kind of fell apart for me in the second half. I was like, what are we doing here? It took a turn that I just really wasn't jiving with, and then the ending felt so rush and random at the same time. Maybe that's the point. Maybe that is the point and I'm missing the point, but for me it just felt so unsatisfying. I really was hoping for like one conclusion, but instead it kind of wrapped up in like this gorgeous pretty bow, and it's not that kind of story. So I was really disappointed with like, this is gonna sound so bad, but I was really disappointed by how nicely it ended, where I was expecting, because the story is so messy and there's so many different facets of what's going on behind the scenes, I was expecting a messy ending, and that's really what I was hoping for. But instead we got a nicely wrapped ending, and it just did not hit. It also didn't leave me like with that, I can't say that I wanted like a cliffhanger, but it didn't leave me gripped to go into the next one. You know, there's a way to end it where you're like, oh, I need to go to the next one and immediately find out what happens without necessarily doing a huge cliffhanger. But like, it didn't leave me with that. I was like, I'm really not happy here, so I'm not going to continue in the series. And it just really hurts my heart because I do love Shauna Maguire and I do love her writing. And like I said, the first half, amazing, but the ending of this book, ooh, it did not work for me. It did not work for me. And also, why all of the corn? I need to know, why all of the corn references? If someone can explain that to me in the comments, please, I would love to know. But like, why? Why? The next one that I have is Dark Corners by Megan Golden. This is the sequel to Night Swim, and I loved the Night Swim. I am a mixed media gal, so like the Night Swim, right up my alley. Follows a podcaster, we have a mystery thriller going on, we are unpacking a case as she's going along, but she's also getting stalked. There's just so much going on, and it works, okay? This is the sequel, and while I didn't like hate it, I also was just expecting a little bit more. But the biggest disappointment to me in this book was the way that social media influencers were really reflected. Now I get it, there's two sides to every coin here, and where I do think that some of the points were valid, I really just feel like she was just going ham on them and really like ripping to part the whole social media influencer world, and really not giving any sort of influencer credit for like how much hard work goes in behind the scenes. Like, if you are present on social media at all, if you make any sort of reels, TikToks, YouTube videos, you know it's not just like point, shoot, go. There's so much that happens behind the scenes, and then you add in brand deals and all of these things, and I just feel like it was painted in such a negative light. Now, I do understand, like, you know, a lot of social media influencers can be perceived as being fake and like that kind of thing, and like that's, like I said, there's two sides of every coin, but I really feel like she was really like nitpicking on like the everyday influencer, and it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. There's also a bit of a romance thing happening in this book, and I just was not here for that. It just did not add anything to the story. It didn't make me want to continue in this series at all. It was like, if that's where this is going, like, I don't really want to know more. Like, I'm good with like where this went, and like not really even that. So yeah, I did like the mystery overall. It was a little bit predictable, but I did like that. I still love the podcast element to this book, but like the whole taking the mick out of the social media influencers just really didn't do it for me. And then you add in this romance, and I was like, no, no, I'm not here for it. I'm just not here for it. My next disappointment of the year was The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This is the prequel to The Hunger Games. It goes over President Snow's backstory, his life, how he got to where he is. But like, did it really? Did it really? Because I was left feeling like I don't see how he got from point A to point Z, and like how he went from being this person who experienced all these things
to the asshat that he was in the Hunger Games.
I just don't see the connection there. So it just didn't work for me in that sense. I have not seen the movie yet, so maybe that like will change my mind a bit. And I did like the overall story of him, and I like getting to see that like glimpse into his life and like where the rose thing came from and his experience with like some of the Hunger Games and all of that. I liked seeing that, but I just at the end of the day did not understand how he got from that to where he was in the Hunger Games, because it is just a striking difference in my opinion, and I just don't understand. So maybe I'm missing something, and you know what, if I am, please explain in the comments, because I could be, maybe I just need to be educated a little bit more. But to me, my brain did not make that connection. I was like, I did not leave that book feeling like, oh man, I really understand him now. I really get where he was coming from and how, you know, these life events got him to where he was. Like, I absolutely understand, you know, there was this going on and this going, like, that did not happen for me. Like, yeah, those things happen to you, but that does not equate going to where you ended up, and like all of the turmoil and war and all of the horrific things that you caused to happen. What? Something in the middle is missing there, and that's how I felt after I read this book, and it just made me so sad because I wanted to love it. I reread The Hunger Games this year, the entire series. It is so incredible, such an amazing reread experience, and I really wanted something more from this book, and I just didn't get it. I didn't get it, and I'm really sad about it. I am still looking forward to seeing the movie, though. Maybe that will, like I said, change my opinion a little bit. I don't know. I don't know, though. We'll have to see. Next, we have two mysteries that I was highly anticipating for this year, and they just kind of did not do it for me. The first one was The Golden Spoon. This should have been up my street. This is like screams me in a book. If you know anything about me at all, if you follow me on Instagram at all, you know I am obsessed with the Great British Bake Off, or the Great British Baking Show, as it's known here. I'm obsessed, okay? It's like an understatement. Obsessed is an understatement. I love that. So this book is like taking the Great British Bake Off, but make it a murder mystery. Are you kidding me? I was so excited for this one, and it just let me down at every point. Nothing happened in this book. Nothing. All it was like a character arc of each contestant. We literally got like a chapter from each contestant at the beginning, sharing their entire backstory. And like, I don't need that. I don't need 8 chapters to dive into each contestant's life, get to learn every little thing about them. Like, I don't need that in the slightest. You could give me a little blurb in one chapter and I would be good to go. We don't get the entire contestants on the show backstory. We get it woven in little by little, and like that would have been fine. But to start the book off that way, it's already a bad sign. Already a bad sign. And then we get into the mystery, and it's just like so bland and so flat, and like the baking show wasn't even like a huge part of the book. Like all they did was just mention the estate that they were staying in, and like some things happened around the tent, and like there was some tiny mischievous things happening within the tent within like the first few chapters, and then it just, we didn't go back to the tent after that. And like, I wanted a baking show, like I wanted sabotage, I wanted it to go in. If we're gonna do a baking show murder mystery, like I want it in there, and I want it to be full-fledged sabotage and like go that way. This unfortunately did not. We spent like a minute minuscule amount of time in the tent, and then we went into this gigantic castle estate that they were staying in, and everything else just happened in there, and it was just so boring, and it was just such a disappointment because this should have been my perfect mystery, and it wasn't, and it just wasn't, and I'm very sad about it. It was a missed opportunity, in my opinion, a complete missed opportunity. I'm not gonna let it go. I'm not gonna let it go. And then the other one was The Last Heir to Blackwood Library. This one I was really looking forward to because it's kind of like a dark academia fantasy with mystery, and I love that combination. It really works for me a lot of the time, and this one I really enjoyed up until the ending, and then the last like epilogue of this is like, oh, it's a good like 75-page epilogue of just this weird romance, and I just don't understand the choice. I really don't. Some people are probably going to be here for it, you know me, I'm not like a huge romance reader. I don't mind when it's like a subplot or mixed into like, you know, romantasy, that kind of thing, but I don't need it to be like the main thing. So this could just be a me problem, but we had this really cool mystery, we had this really cool setting happening throughout the entire book, and then you get towards the ending. I do think the ending wrapped up a little bit too quickly, and then you get this weird 75-page epilogue where it just turns into this really strange romance section, and I was just left feeling like baffled. Like I wanted to DNF that part of it and just keep the original book. So it's not that the original part of this book, I keep saying original, but like the main part of this book wasn't bad. I actually really enjoyed myself up until then, and then it just like fell off. So that's why this is more of like a disappointment. I was like, what are we doing here? Why am I still reading this? I don't care. This doesn't add anything to what just happened in the main part of the book, and it doesn't set up like a weird series or anything like that. It's just happening, and it was very strange, and I don't understand the choice. So that's why it was disappointing for me, because I just like don't get it, and I wasn't here for it, and it didn't add anything. So I'm just reading 75 pages for nothing. Why am I doing that? So I don't know, maybe other people have a different opinion, like I said, with me not being a romance reader, but like that just did not work for me at all. This next one is kind of a strange one to talk about because I understand how well this book was done. I understand how good the writing is. I understand how well this story was told, but I wish I had known more of the trigger warnings going into it, and that is Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. This story, the book itself, is not a disappointment. It's not at all. This book is extremely well done, well written, well told, but holy schmoly, nowhere at the beginning of this book does it say, at least in the copy that I read, did it say, look out for XYZ, and this book is about to get hella graphic. And like, that did not happen. So I went into this a little bit blind, and that was a lot. And I really wish that I had some sort of warning, because wow, I still cannot get some of these scenes out of my head. So it's ended up on this list because of the fact that I didn't know that this huge graphic part about essay and the R word and brutal torture and attack on women was part of this book, and had I known that going into it, I probably wouldn't have read it, because that is not a subject matter that I like to go into in the nitty-gritty. Like, I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, I watch a lot of crime shows, and I can handle a certain amount. Like, I feel like my tolerance level is a lot higher than a lot of other people, and even at that, this book was a lot to swallow, and I had to keep like putting it down and looking away, and at the same time I was like, I just need to get through this book. Like, I need to get through it and like put it aside and like try not to think about it again, but that's really hard to do because it is now ingrained in my brain in the worst way. Again, beautiful writing, great story, love the sister relationship in this book, but holy moly, had I known, I would not have gone into it. So if you decide that you still want to read it, please look up every trigger warning that you could possibly look up for this book, because it is a lot. It goes into grave detail that I wish it didn't, but it did, and I get it was for the sake of the story, but again, had I known, I wouldn't have done it. So it was a disappointment for me in the sense of like, I didn't know. I didn't know, and I can't stop thinking about it, and I wish I could. So that's why it was a disappointment. That's why. The next one that I have is The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher, and this one, so sad for so many reasons. I mean, first of all, it's T. Kingfisher. I love T. Kingfisher so much. So to have one of her books on the most disappointing, as well as a DNF, makes me a little sad and does question, like, is she a favorite author? But like, no doubt, she is a favorite. These ones just didn't work for me. The Twisted Ones, I really enjoyed the idea of it. I also, obviously, it's T. Kingfisher writing. Like, there's no doubt that the writing is absolutely stunning. This is kind of like your typical haunted house story starting out. You know, you have someone who needs to go back to their hometown to clean out their family home, to deal with them things in their family estate, that kind of thing. And then as we get there, it does get a little bit more fantasy. And I love fantasy, but this one was just, it intertwined a certain book / play, and there was just chapters on chapters on chapters read from this book, and it was the most boring thing I've ever read. Like, the book from the story that we are getting for The Twisted Ones is interesting. I liked that. I like the little bit of a fantastical element to it. I liked that. But the insert of this play / book into the story just took me out at every single turn. Every single time I turned the page and I knew I was going to be reading from the inside book again, I was like, oh my god, here we go, here we go. I'm about to be in for 20 to 30 pages of this like inner book that I do not care about, and it is the most boring thing I have ever read in my life. So that's why this was a disappointment. I liked the overall story, but the inner book, oh no, it was not for me, and it just took me out of the story so much that like by the end of it, I was like, I don't care what happens. I don't care what happens in this overall book anymore, because I just want this inner book to be over so much. So that's why that was a disappointment. I really didn't mean to get that aggressive about it, but like it just, oh my god. I just don't understand. I don't understand. All right, we are down to my last 3, and these were some of my most anticipated reads of the year. So to have them on the most disappointing list hurts my heart. Okay, hurts my heart, but we're gonna talk about it because it's a thing that happened and we just need to get it away. The first one is The Brothers Hawthorne by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I was expecting to put this on my favorites list, but it's not happening. It's here, and it's on the most disappointing, and I'm sad about it. I'm very sad about it, but you know what? This just didn't work for me, and it's not really what I was expecting. I think that the idea, so if you don't know, this one, we have a change in perspective from the Inheritance Games. In the Inheritance Games, we are following Avery. In this book, we get a switch, and we are actually following Jameson and Grayson, which the idea of is cool. I'm like, awesome. I want to hear from the brothers' perspective. Turns out, I actually don't. Turns out, I want Avery telling the story the entire time. I felt like it was just too much brooding happening, and I really wasn't invested in either of the mysteries that we are following in this book and like the puzzles that are happening. Like, they pertain to Grayson and Jameson's lives, which is alluded to in the Inheritance Games, and I'm keeping it very vague because I don't want to ruin anything, but we are following up on some things that happened in the Inheritance Games stories. but I wasn't really super invested in finding out what happened there to begin with. And then we just get from their perspective, and it's a lot of brooding. We are introduced to a few more characters, which is like fun, but didn't really add anything to it for me. And overall, I was just really disappointed in it. It really just didn't do anything for me. I really just want like the OG cast back. And I know that she's continuing this series and there's gonna be more. Will I read it? Yeah, I will, okay? Because I'm a sucker for the series. But I do hope in the next one that we get more of Xander and Nash in it too. I think having a well-rounded cast would be better as opposed to just having the broody ones, because it's just too much. It is too much. But you have Xander in there and he's more of like the comic relief here, and then you have Nash who is broody, but like he also have his own thing going on, and we really don't hear anything from him ever, so I feel like we need a little bit more from him. So I just feel like it needs to be a little bit more well-rounded again. That's just my opinion. You know what? Take it with a grain of salt. But I am still going to continue with this series because I just can't help myself. And then the next one was Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. This year I have discovered that I am not really into overly religious stories. And had I known that going into this book, that this is where the story was gonna go, I probably wouldn't have been as excited, probably wouldn't have been on my most anticipated, and I probably would have like not jumped the gun to read it. I would have probably waited for other reviews to come out and that kind of thing. But anyways, it was on my list. I was really excited about it. I love Rachel Harrison. I've really dug into her backlist this year. Really enjoy a lot of her books, but this one just didn't work for me. I really did enjoy our main character. She is so good at making relatable protagonists, and I feel like a lot of the things around mental health and things like that, you know, are super relatable that this protagonist is going through. But the story goes in a bit of a I don't want to ruin it, but it does go in like a little bit of a religious way, and it just didn't work for me. I just found myself so bored through all of that, and I was like, I don't really care now where this story goes. I feel like I've read this story a bunch of times, and it just fell flat for me. It really didn't bring anything to the table, anything new to the table. It really wasn't anything different than like I haven't read before from other stories that are very similar. So I just feel like it just did not work for me, and I was very sad about it. Very sad about it. I was hoping to add this to my Rachel Harrison collection, but unfortunately, it's not gonna happen. Thank goodness I got this one from the library and didn't buy it new. Thank goodness for libraries. And then my last disappointing read for 2023 was Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. I loved In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. I think that book is incredible. This one just really, like, it started out okay. I was like, all right, we have a very, like, southern religious town. Another religion book, but like it was done in a different way that I was like, okay, I can like really maybe get behind this depending upon where the story goes. And I liked that there was kind of an allude to like a vampire-esque situation maybe happening. What? The amount of times that Twilight is mentioned in this book, that's saying something right there. The ending of this book just did not work. One, she tried to do too many things. There's like 10 things that happen at the end of this book, and then the real ending, like the last like chapter, no, absolutely not. I am not here. I do not subscribe to that happening. Absolutely not. I like an open ending kind of thing. I get it, but like it was just so cheesy, and for how serious this book started out, within the first like, I don't know, maybe like 20 or 30 pages, I was like, oh, we have like a darker theme going on here. Really enjoy it. And then all of a sudden it was like really mentioning Twilight, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe we're really gonna get into vampires. And then that kind of fell apart, and then we have a weird romance going on, and then there's a weird thing with like the religion community inside the town, and then the ending, and no, it just didn't work for me. Okay, I'm gonna talk in circles if I keep going. No. Okay, so we have arrived. Those were all of my most disappointing books of the year, and now we have arrived to my least favorite book of the year, the worst book of 2023 for me. I'm sad to say is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I don't think anyone's surprised by this. I have talked about how I dislike this book so much. I really enjoyed the first part of it, and then it went off the freaking rails. I found the sibling relationship in this book so annoying. I know there are so many reviews out there of people being like, they are so relatable as siblings, I really connected to them, I really understand their dynamic, blah, blah, blah. It didn't work for me. I found them both so incredibly irritating, and then you have them come together and they are just even more infuriating together. And it's just the choices that they were making. I was like, what are we doing here? I understand you are going through your stages of grief, and like I like how the book was set up that way. I like how the book was set up in the stages of grief. That's probably like where my enjoyment of this ends, because after that, like, I get that's what you're going through, but the choices these two made together and separately, and then the choices that the overall family made, what? And then you add in Pumpkin, and that just really didn't work for me at all. It wasn't scary, it maybe was trying to be comical, but to me it wasn't like funny at all. I was just like, what the fuck am I here for? What is going on? What am I reading right now? And it just got worse and worse and worse and worse, and I was just left baffled. And then the scene at the end with all of the stuffed animals, like, wow. The weird dog, and like there's just so many parts of this book. I was just like, what are we doing? Mr. Hendrix, what were you on when you were writing this book? You really like pulled from every nightmare you've ever had, but like didn't make it scary. Or pulled from every Goosebumps book you've ever read, but like didn't make it scary. It could have been such an incredible, scary read, and it just was not. But I also didn't find it comical. Like, it wasn't funny to me. I was just reading it being like, what in the world am I doing here? What am I doing here? Why am I continuing to read this? But I did read the whole thing, and this was the catalyst of like, after I read this book, I bought it brand new, and after I read this book I was like, no more. No more. I'm reading books from the library and then purchasing them afterwards, because no. This is a prime example of like, I don't want to physically own this anymore. I don't. I sold it. I don't even want to look at it anymore. I was like, get it out of my house. No. And also, this book was just entirely too long. And it just kept going and going and getting more unhinged. And then the thing with the daughter, and like, oh my god, there's just so many things. As my brain is like going through this right now, I'm like, oh my god, and then that happened and that happened. I'm not going to say anything else, because if you haven't read this book, maybe now you want to, because of how batshit crazy it was. Maybe that makes you want to read it more, and like, that's okay. For me, it didn't work. So that is my worst book of 2023. Let's just put it in the past. We're gonna leave it here in 2023 where it lives, and maybe just pretend it didn't happen and move on to hopefully a lot more exciting reads in 2024. So that is my list for you. Those are my most disappointing, my DNFs, and my worst books of 2023. I hope you enjoyed. Even if you have different opinions, like I said, if any of your faves are on here, remember, we all have different reading tastes. So if you feel the same, let me know in the comments. If you would like to rebuttal in the comments, that is totally okay here. Just keep it positive and friendly. And I would love to know what your worst book of 2023 was. So please let me know in the comments, either your top one, your top three, your top five. Please let me know. I need to know, and I have loved watching all of your videos. Oh my god. I just love it. I'm here for it. My favorites will be coming soon, so keep your eyes out for that. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Do not forget to subscribe if you are not already. Turn on the bell so you never miss a video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!
With you and I, the future